We've all been there before. We're unhappy with a certain part of our lives and we want to change. So we tell ourselves, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and start running 5K every day for a month so that I can lose these extra 30 pounds of weight. For the rest of the day, we feel really good about ourselves, happy that we decided to make change and said enough was enough. Then tomorrow comes around and we're woken by the alarm that we set. We remember our goals, roll over, and get back to sleep. Why is it so hard to make change stick? The reason here is multifaceted, but a lot of it comes down to how we set the goal up for ourselves. So let's break it down. Right off the bat, we've started off on the wrong foot. We put the task of making a change off to the future instead of committing to it straight away. Subconsciously, what we're communicating to ourselves is that the change really isn't that important, and instead we've relegated it to some abstract moment in the future in which we may or may not follow through on our intentions, no matter how good they may be. Instead, aim to commit to a change as soon as possible. Because if you aren't willing to commit to it now, then what's to say that you'll commit to it when that abstract moment in the future becomes the present? Life only ever happens in the present moment, and therefore change can only happen in the present. So if you're serious about doing something, then get to it straight away. But let's say you did actually get up and start running. In that case, there's two likely outcomes. The first is that you're out the door running and you're feeling great. 10 minutes in though, it's a different story. Your heart is pounding and your breath sounds more like wheezing. Eventually, you stop, turn around, and walk back home before having reached your 5K goal. For the rest of the day, instead of feeling proud and accomplished that you at least got up when you said you would and ran as much as was within your current physical capability, you beat yourself up for not having met your goal. So the next day, when the alarm rings, the negative associations you made with running the day before and any other time you've tried to make it a habit are at the forefront of your mind, so you roll over, disable the alarm, and get back to sleep. Or maybe you did push yourself to run the whole 5K. The second option can still be problematic, because by the end of it you were probably so exhausted that you swore to yourself, never again. And at that point, you probably started wishing that you had just rolled over and gotten back to sleep while you still had the chance. That means that you're back at square one, or maybe even worse off, because now, like in the previous scenario, you have negative associations tied to running and maybe even exercise in general. So, are you just doomed to fail? Forced to accept your destiny as unfit and seemingly lazy? No, you aren't the problem. The problem is in the fact that you told yourself that you were going to run 5K after years of not running or doing any other form of exercise. The moment you did that, you stacked the odds against yourself. Why do we do this? Again, the reason is multifaceted. We think to ourselves that we won't see significant change if we don't do something drastic. We think 5K sounds like a cool and impressive number, and we want to see ourselves as cool, impressive people. Plus, it's a number that we've been trained to think of as one that a fit person can easily do. So by deductive reasoning, if we can run 5K, then we must be fit and one step closer to achieving our goal. And while yes, this is true, it doesn't mean you have to run 5K right now. Like the old saying goes, you have to walk before you can run. And I think in this case, it can be applied pretty literally. After years of inactivity, you probably can't run a 5K, and that's okay. What's important is that you introduce more activity into your life. And yes, this can look like walking, like the old saying goes, but it can also just be jogging for shorter amounts of time or distance, or doing yoga, or swimming, or biking, or doing stairs, or whatever floats your boat. The benefits of setting a goal which you can actually reasonably achieve are several, but they fall under two main categories: mental and physical. By setting a more manageable goal, both the mental and physical hurdles you have to overcome to achieve it are a lot smaller. And since they're smaller, you're a lot more likely to actually follow through. And once you do, you'll have the satisfaction and gain the confidence that only comes from doing what you set out to do. So if you only ran half a mile this time, then a mile starts seeming a lot less intimidating. And besides, your body will now be better conditioned to eventually run that 1 mile. And once you can easily run 1 mile, then you can increase it to 2, and so on until you can easily run 5K, without all the mental and physical suffering that comes from setting a goal that's too unrealistic and minor. As a sidebar, this may seem to counteract my first tip where I told you that if you're serious about doing something, to do it as soon as possible. But by running half a mile first, you are working on eventually running a 5K. You aren't putting that goal off into the far off future, you're just being realistic about where you are now and what it takes to get there. So now we're in a pretty good spot. For the last week, we've been setting smaller goals and actually accomplishing them. This has given us the fuel to see the challenge through for the whole month, like we initially set out to do. At the end of the month, we whip out that scale, anxiously put one foot on it, then the other, and heart pounding, look as the scale settles down on a number. Only 5 pounds less than before. Suddenly, all the energy and motivation we had built towards attaining our goal vanishes, along with any newly found confidence. When we look in the mirror, all we see is a failure. So even though we had been on a pretty great track and were almost at a point where we could honestly say that running had become a new habit, the next day, when the alarm rings, we roll over, disable it, and get back to sleep. Unfortunately, forming a new habit can be a finicky process. And at the beginning, there's a lot of room for failure. So even though we avoided a lot of the initial pitfalls, we were only ever headed towards failure. Again, not because of something intrinsic about us, but because of the way we set the goal for ourselves. Similar to the last scenario, we set too extreme of a goal, probably just because we didn't know any better. That's why it's important to research your goal before beginning. Had we done that, we might have learned that a healthy rate of weight loss is 6 to 8 pounds a month. So losing 30 pounds would have either been impossible or life-threatening. We might have also seen that diet actually contributes a lot more to weight loss than does exercise, and we might have shifted our goal to reflect that, focusing on having a healthier diet rather than achieving some arbitrary physical feat. So now you can see why, in the way we initially set up our goal, we were almost destined to fail. There's power in the setup, and by making just these tiny shifts, you're a lot more likely to succeed. And the best part is that this doesn't just apply to running and exercise, it applies to all habit forming. As a summary, here's a quick list of do's and don'ts. Don't delay. Don't set unrealistic goals. Don't have unrealistic expectations. Do start as soon as you can. Do set more manageable goals, and do your research. Unfortunately, these aren't the only hurdles in successfully establishing a new habit. So I'm planning to make more videos that address habits and habit forming. I'll leave a link to the playlist here and in the description below when I do. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. And if you liked the video, then please hit that like button and subscribe. It lets me know that you like the content that I'm putting out, and I really appreciate it. Also, comment down below what your experience with habit forming has been. One of the reasons I wanted to start doing YouTube was to be able to create and hold a space where we could have conversations like this, and where we could learn, share, and be inspired by each other. I so look forward to reading what you have to say, and thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you next time.